the magical abilities of the Bosnian pyramids. The Earth might be tiny compared to other planets, but it for sure has a lot of variety. One mysterious structure that has caused many to ask questions is that of the pyramids of Bosnia. The pyramids of Giza are truly impressive, but the giant pyramids of Bosnia are just as impressive. One of the local archaeologists in Bosnia made a claim related to the Bosnian pyramids. He believes they are at least 30,000 years old, which is 20,000 years earlier than what our history taught us. The Bosnian pyramids are a massive complex of 5 different pyramids. The entire complex can be found near a small town 30 kilometers northwest of Sarajevo in Bosnia. Some of the scientists refuse to even look at them, and they claim that the archaeologist is just trying to secure funding and get more tourists in Bosnia. Of course, not all of the scientists refuse to know more. Organic fossils have been found inside the chambers that have been excavated. The find suggests that the pyramids are approximately 30,000 years old. This is surprising considering we have been taught that the ancient structures were not nearly as old as this. Just like the Egyptian pyramids, the pyramids of Bosnia also orient to the cosmic north. What makes the pyramids of Bosnia so special is the fact they are 15 times more accurate than the Pyramid of Giza. The top of each pyramid, dragon, sun and moon, also forms a flawlessly perfect equilateral triangle. Another interesting discovery is that researchers have detected and measured an energy beam that gets released from the top of the Bosnian pyramid. What surprised the researchers is that when the distances increase, the energy beam does not become weaker. Incredibly, it actually becomes stronger and more intense. Tests have been carried out, and it was reported that the energy beam has a diameter of between 5 and 9 meters. Some archaeologists have called the pyramid an energy machine. The underground chambers of the pyramids seem to feature ionization levels that are much higher than the outside. Some even suggest that the pyramid and the energy it gives off have different healing properties. Have researchers found a 300-million-year-old screw embedded into rock? Finding fossilized remains in ancient rock is one thing, but how about a 100-million-year-old screw that isn't even from this planet? A Russian team sent to investigate a meteorite crater in the region of Kalaga, Western Russia, only expected to find space rock and rubble, but instead found something even more extraterrestrial. Near to the crater hole, the team happened upon a rock dislodged and partially fragmented by the impact of the nearby meteorite. What they found in there was a very strange object, the curiousness of which needed further scientific analysis to confirm exactly what they had found. A paleontological analysis was performed, and it was confirmed that in the center of the rock itself was a screw, not placed there by human design, but rather strongly embedded within, suggesting it had fallen to the ground at some point, only to be encased over time. Tests showed that the iron atoms of the screw and silicon rock atoms spread and fused together, confirming that the screw and rock had been in each other's company for a significant time. It was also concluded that the screw was not the result of natural process, but indeed artificially fashioned. What was even more strange, however, was what geologists said about the age of the rock. Radiocarbon dating placed it to be over 300 million years old. Needless to say, this was a long time before any humans, or their tools for that matter, had ever been on this planet. So how did it get there? Nigel Watson, an expert of the extraterrestrial, believes this could be ancient evidence of aliens visiting Earth a long time ago, with the screw being a part of their landing craft on this planet. This screw could actually be part of many reports that talk of spheres, toothed wheels, manufactured bots and footprints embedded in rocks and stones hundreds of millions of years old. Government scientists insist that this is actually the result of a natural formation, even perhaps being an ancient marine animal that bears some similarity in its looks. However, with this particular rock formation secured in a research facility beyond independent geological and archaeological specialists, it is clear that we will not be getting to the truth of the matter anytime soon. Bigfoot's hair and the FBI. Peter Byrne, now 94, is certain Bigfoot is real. In fact, in 1976, Byrne was even able to get the FBI to test a hair sample from the alleged creature. As a young boy, Byrne was told stories of the Yeti of the Himalayas by his father. He credits this in sparking his interest in the unknown. In fact, he has an entire webpage devoted to his search for the elusive creature. He claims his search has taken him to the Himalayan mountains all the way to the Pacific Northwest of the United States. He claims he has seen 14-inch footprints on multiple occasions he's sure belonged to Bigfoot. Once landing in the Pacific Northwest, Byrne was all in, 7 days a week. In the 1970s, an unknown sample of hair, a whole 15 strands connected by a patch of skin, was found at a campground in Washington state. This campground was the location of suspected Bigfoot activity. Byrne's group had submitted this hair to the FBI, and Byrne himself spent most of 1976 repeatedly writing to the FBI, pleading for them to test the mysterious sample. Finally, in December of that year, Byrne received a response. FBI Assistant Director J. Cochran Jr. wrote that while the FBI's laboratory is normally for law enforcement agencies and criminal investigations, occasionally, on a case-by-case basis, in the interest of research and scientific inquiry, we make exceptions to the general policy. Cochran then decided to have the hair tested. After countless letters and endless waiting, the results were back. The FBI had determined the hair was from the deer family. You would think that this would discourage Byrne. However, that is not the case. Even after all this time, he is determined to find Bigfoot. When asked if he had ever spotted one, Byrne answered a remorseful no, but that his very good friend had seen one recently. Although it's down to more of a hobby than a full-time job now, even at the age of 94, Byrne keeps searching for his childhood Yeti. William Bates. Back in 1902 in New York, a well-known doctor by the name of William Bates sends a messenger to deliver a note to his wife. "My dear wife," it says, "I am called out of town to some major operations. I go with Dr. Forsch, an old student, to do a mastoid, some cataracts, and other operations. He promises me a bonanza. Too bad to miss the horse show, but I am glad to get so much money for us all. I am in such a flurry. Do not worry, I will write details later. Yours lovingly, Willie." It was not out of the ordinary for the doctor to be called away on spontaneous moments like this, but his wife, Ada Seaman Bates, found something in the note puzzling. Dr. Bates was already particularly successful as one of the foremost optometrists in the city. They were already very well off, and the doctor was also not one to talk about money like this. However, Ada set this to the back of her mind and thought nothing more of it. That is, until several days had passed, and the good doctor had still not returned home. His disappearance prompted a search, not only by the local police precinct in New York City, but a wider net cast internationally by the Freemasons, the elusive organization that William Bates himself was a member of. Months passed and no news came Ada's way, up until a letter arrived at her door. News from the chapter of Freemasons based across the Atlantic 3,500 miles away in London. A character resembling Dr. Bates had been located in a London hospital, but he was not living his day-to-day as a senior optometrist. He was merely a medical assistant. The mystery only deepened when it was revealed he first came to the hospital not as a doctor, but as a patient. When he first arrived, he was so emaciated he could barely stand, looking haggard and thin, his eyes deeply sunken. This for a man whose sizable bank account should have ensured a life of luxury wherever he travelled to. Ada made the journey to England at once, but this was not to be a happy reunion. Ada Bates's joy upon seeing her husband again was short-lived. She was met with a blank stare from her long-lost husband. "I don't know why you bother, madame," he said. "We are strangers." But she was not one to let their long-standing marriage disappear like her husband had. He was persuaded by her, albeit begrudgingly, to move in with her to the Savoy Hotel where they might rekindle their relationship anew. Her efforts wouldn't pay off, as a day later, William Bates snuck out of their room, never to be seen by her again. Ada never stopped searching, sending private investigators throughout Europe and the eastern seaboard, but all in vain. She died clutching a photo of him, heavy-hearted and in anguish. But Dr. Bates's story would not end there. 8 years later, an acquaintance visiting Grand Forks, a small town of 12,000, stumbled upon a man who cast a great similarity to William. Again, there followed a clear lack of memories of his previous life. It was as if he had a chunk of his mind removed, like a slice of watermelon chopped away and eaten by an invisible monster, wrote the associate. Was this tale an episode of amnesia, or perhaps the aimless wandering a man looking to find something more than money in his life, but only ended up losing himself? Whatever the case, William Bates passed away in 1931, leaving this disappearing act a mystery forever. The disappearance of Drake Kramer. Drake Kramer was 21 years old and looking forward to studying geology at college. Described as a loving and caring young man, it came as a shock when one day in 2015, he travelled alone to the Grand Canyon and was never seen again. Despite extensive searches involving helicopters and teams of searcher dogs trailing along dozens of miles of wooded areas and along the canyon rim, no evidence about Kramer's whereabouts was unearthed. Kramer's friends and family could not understand his actions. Excited about his upcoming studies, it made no sense that Kramer would suddenly pick up and leave everything without informing anyone. Just 2 days before Kramer was reported missing, he accompanied his father to a showing of American Sniper and was described as having been in good spirits throughout the evening. As a lover of nature, the Grand Canyon was one of Kramer's favorite places to be. In a Facebook post following a visit to the site with his aunt, he wrote of wishing he could stay there. But Kramer had never expressed interest before of going to the Grand Canyon alone. What's more, his father doubted whether Kramer had even taken the appropriate hiking gear with him. Kramer would have been more than aware of the dangerous winter conditions along the South Rim, which could be extremely snowy, with icy roads and trails and possible road closures. It seems absurd he would not have prepared himself properly for the excursion. This has led some to believe Kramer might have been suicidal. Before his disappearance, Kramer sent out a text message telling his loved ones that he had to give his body to Mother Earth. This might be an innocent reference to his love of the outdoors, but it could also be read in a darker light and indicate Kramer's depressed mental state at the time. Whichever way you read Kramer's message, the facts remain the same. Over 5 years later, there is still no sign of him, leaving his loved ones still searching for answers. Patricia Meehan. On the morning of April 20th, 1989, 37-year-old Patricia Meehan left her home in Bozeman, Montana. The last to see her there was her landlord, who noted strange behavior, stating that she seemed hyper. 300 miles away on Highway 200 near Circle, Montana, Patricia's car was spotted driving the wrong way by Peggy Bueller and her father. Bueller swerved to avoid the collision, but the car hit the vehicle behind them. Inside that car was off-duty police dispatcher Carol Heights. After exiting her vehicle unharmed, Heights witnessed Patricia leave her car. Patricia walked up to Heights and, as she described it, appeared to look right through her. Bueller, who remained at the scene, described seeing Patricia standing off to the side, observing the scene like a spectator, not like it had happened to her. Bueller then watched as Patricia walked into an empty field and vanished. When the police arrived, they followed a trail of tennis shoe tracks, matching Patricia's. These tracks were found in an empty field nearly 3/4 of a mile from the accident. They followed the trail until 3 a.m., but the trail eventually went cold, the tracks fading into the terrain. After 2,000 missing person flyers, countless searches and abandoned coal mines checked, there was no sign of Patricia. Her family could not explain the reasoning of why she was so far from home that very night. Even more peculiar, there have been over 5,000 reported sightings of Patricia. By June of 1989, 25 sightings had already been reported, including 3 from police officers. On May 4th, she was spotted at a Hardee's restaurant in Minnesota, reportedly drinking water alone for over 5 hours. On May 5th, she was seen twice, once inside a truck stop at Sioux Falls, South Dakota, drinking coffee through the night. Later that morning, she was seen with a man who appeared to be in his 30s. On May 19th, a sighting occurred near Patricia's home in Bozeman. Waitresses at a local restaurant noted she ate her breakfast hurriedly and appeared to be talking to herself. Later that week, she was reportedly seen at a horse auction in Billings, Montana. On May 30th, a trucker reported offering a female resembling Patricia a ride on a highway in rural Washington. She was also reported being seen at a truck stop near Tacoma. Sightings continued at truck stops all over the Pacific Northwest area. The last notable sighting was on August 30th, 1990. A woman with a strong resemblance to Patricia was arrested for littering in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. The sighting made the newspaper, but fingerprints later proved the woman was not Patricia. Despite all of these sightings and an exhaustive search of the Northwest by her family, a solid trail was never found. As of 2019, Patricia's disappearance remains unsolved. Bodmin Moore. Back in early 1995, the British government received more than 60 reported incidents taken from locals of Bodmin Moore. These reported that the residents were encountering a large black panther-like creature in the countryside. For those unaware, black panthers are not native to Britain. What's odd though is hundreds of witnesses have reported seeing these creatures around Britain's countryside. They are said to have a large, powerful jaw, the muscled body of a big cat being more than 4 feet in length, and black fur making it nearly impossible to see at night. This led to the government starting an official investigation into the area of Bodmin Moor to try to better understand the existence of the creature and whether or not it posed a threat to the residents. Shortly after the investigation began, a boy found the skull of a leopard on the banks of the nearby river. This caused many to speculate that perhaps there was a never-before-seen local species of large cats in the region. These creatures were then quickly given the name of the Beast of Bodmin Moor, which led to many experts trying to quickly assess the situation and better understand how a leopard could have arrived in the region. Many theories and myths have started that a rich private collector could have been illegally importing the creatures and soon freed them all throughout the region, a theory that would explain quite reasonably how the beast came to be and why it would be in the open areas of Bodmin Moor. Others believe that the Beast of Bodmin Moor is a direct descendant of the native wildcat species and that it's now starting to make a comeback. If the Eurasian lynx that used to call Britain its home and what people are reporting is a panther-like creature, also the lynx has a much lighter coloration compared to what eyewitnesses are seeing. This has led many to believe that an entirely different cat species is being witnessed. Outside of the 60 direct reports of the creature, there have been other reports of leopard calls, hissing and growling. Not only that, but many photographers have captured these elusive creatures. As of today, what people are seeing remains a mystery. It's not just giant panthers that are seen in this area. A variety of other creatures and humanoids have been reported in the last few years. For the last 30 years, people have been encountering black-eyed children. These entities are said to have a dark presence, and when someone encounters them, they feel fear. Those who have encountered them say that they give off a dark energy, and that it's left them feeling scared. Most of the people who have seen them want answers, but unfortunately are left with more questions than answers. The witnesses often feel that the children were somehow supernatural and could even read their minds. Over the years, many people have come forward with their encounters, and there seems to be a recurring theme. These black-eyed children usually prey on people when they are alone, and one of their main goals is to try and gain access to the person's home. It's not known what happens if they did gain access to your home, but some have come close. They usually say things like they need to contact someone, asking to come inside and use the phone. Most people would probably say yes if they saw a young person asking this, but it's the nature in which they say it. Most of the witnesses say that something doesn't feel right and that the energy around these people feel dark. A few people have reported having run-ins with these mysterious entities around the Bodmin Moor area. As of today, it's not known what these children are or what they want. The Roman Dodecahedrons. Our first mystery dates back to the Romans. It's a hollow object with 12 equally sized faces. The first Roman dodecahedron was found more than 200 years ago, and since then around 100 more have been unearthed around what was the Roman Empire. Some of these locations include that of Wales, Hungary, Spain, Italy, Germany and France, to name a few. But the 12 faces are about the only uniform thing about the Roman dodecahedrons. Some are made of bronze while others are made of stone, and their size has varied from a golf ball to bigger than a football. In fact, one of the only things that experts are sure of when it comes to these mysterious objects is that they were extremely valuable. Many of the Roman dodecahedrons were made from metal, an expensive and difficult material to craft in Roman times, and were discovered in treasure hoards alongside other precious items such as coins. Beside their value, there hasn't been much agreement from experts into the purpose of the Roman dodecahedrons. Evidence is scarce. None were found with any inscriptions, nor is there any mention of the objects in contemporary documents. Experts having examined the Roman dodecahedrons have put forward uses of the object spanning from knitting to weaponry. Granted, some theories of the Roman dodecahedron's use have proved more feasible than others. For example, the idea that they might have been used as weapons has been dismissed by many experts. The usual heavy and robust lead balls the Romans favoured firing from their slings in wartime sharply contrast to the light and delicate Roman dodecahedrons. However, the link between Roman dodecahedrons and weaponry cannot be completely dismissed. The different locations in which these artifacts were unearthed could link to war zones in the Roman Empire. And just because the objects might not have been used as weapons doesn't mean they weren't still in use in a military context. Hence, some experts have proposed the Roman dodecahedrons could have been used as a range-measuring object on the battlefield. This also explains why so many of these artifacts varied in size and shape. The differentiation of the objects would allow for different ranges to be measured. However, before celebrating that the mystery has been solved, some experts have questioned why the Roman dodecahedrons would then have no markings or inscriptions on them if they were being used as a military mathematical instrument. Another line of thinking is that the Roman artifacts might have held a mystical power for the Romans. One was found in a grave belonging to a wealthy woman in the Netherlands, mounted onto a staff. Its placement suggests that it was seen as giving some magical power to the owner. Another related line of thinking is that the 12 sides of the Roman dodecahedrons might be a reference to Plato's statement. This was that a dodecahedron shape was used for embroidering the constellations on the whole heaven and the astrological zodiac. Therefore, some experts have proposed that the Roman dodecahedrons might have been used as astronomic measuring instruments to determine when to prepare the grain. If the Roman artifacts were held in such high esteem by the Romans, it would explain why so many show so little signs of wear and tear. Then again, there is no contemporary document to support this claim. It's important to come to one definitive conclusion of the purpose of the Roman dodecahedrons. The objects continue to baffle experts, but what can be agreed by all is the uniqueness of this Roman treasure. The Scottish wild man called Lailoken. Referenced across countless historical tales and Scottish legends are the claims of the Scottish wild man, almost legendary in account, known as the Lailoken. The first written account surrounding this wild man creature was made in the 6th century in the story titled The Life of Saint Kentigern, of which described a wild man prophet named Lailoken that resided near the village of Partick within the kingdom of Strathclyde inside the Caledonian forest. According to the ancient written legends, Lailoken was a mystic of whom could see into the future as well as perform a variety of magical talents. He was believed to have gone insane for reasons not entirely specified and had lived his days out in the forest as a wild man unless he was needed by others for his magical talents. In a 15th century book entitled Lailoken and the Kentigern, the book claims that the Lailoken was also known as Merlinum, with a variety of other sources claiming that he was known as Myrddin Wyllt. This has led many historians to believe that the Myrddin Wyllt was the original Welsh character that the Arthurian tales of the wizard Merlin had been based on. Further research into Myrddin Wyllt uncovers that the psychic had fought in the Battle of Afterrid on the losing side and had completely lost his mind, causing him to move out into the wilderness away from anyone who might want to use him for his magical talents. The Secret Chamber. Queen Nefertiti is considered a powerful and respected woman of the past. She was queen of ancient Egypt from 1353 to 1336 BC, and may have even ruled over her kingdom after her husband passed away. Nefertiti is perhaps best known for her beauty and power. In 1913, an incredible bust of her was discovered, and it instantly became a hit with the general public. From that moment on, she was to become an icon in her own right. To this day, she is known as an important figure in ancient Egypt, as well as being a powerhouse of her era. Although she is perhaps one of the most famous figures from ancient Egypt, some of her history is shrouded in mystery. Egyptologists have suggested that she may be the daughter of A top advisor who would go on to become pharaoh after King Tut's death. Recently, a team of British and Egyptian archaeologists scanned King Tut's tomb. This took the researchers over 3 days, but they've said it could help to unravel one of the biggest ancient mysteries. Previous scans of King Tut's chamber showed researchers that there are other chambers and organic materials behind the walls. This could suggest that the famous Nefertiti is buried in one of these unknown chambers. It seems that interest in ancient Egypt is at an all-time high, and this is in part thanks to King Tut's discovery. Back in 1922, during a privately funded excavation by Lord Carnarvon, Howard Carter discovered the completely intact tomb of the ancient Egyptian pharaoh Tutankhamun. The artifacts retrieved, along with the well-preserved body of the pharaoh, helped to provide a clear image during the reign of Tutankhamun and life for ancient Egypt. The tomb was one of the most well-preserved and unaffected tombs, holding a variety of artifacts and clues as to many other Egyptian mysteries that Egyptologists were still trying to answer.